Thanks, Duke. Thanks for coming again. We've got a great speaker. I think probably everybody here knows Marty St. Lewis. He was the longtime wildlife manager of the Summer Lake Wildlife Area. I know Marty because I've led a couple of trips down to that area for the Woodpecker Festival. He's been gracious enough to lend his expertise and show us all the good spots and find a lot of birds. So thank you so much for that. But we're going to learn about swans. I think just probably your general experience down there tonight. Elise Wolf with nice enough to bring Swan. People in Zoom land are going to miss out on that, I think, tonight, but we all get to benefit from that. Oh, I don't know about that, Gordon. This is being recorded. I think that could be too humorous. Marty, why don't you come on up if you want to introduce yourself some more, but I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you. Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces here, but I retired from manager's position at Summer Lake Wildlife Area in 2020. And I had been the manager there for 33 years at Summer Lake. And one over this. So the Zoom people can say, yeah, there we go. And got involved with public forum restoration. And that was through a very good friend of mine from college, Dr. Gary. I was a biologist at Pioneer National Wildlife Refuge at the time. I was still very much involved with Trumpeter Swans, sandhill cranes, a lot of other things. Gary and I remained good friends. A lot of this program are bits and pieces of what Gary's put together for talks to the Friends of Malheur and some other programs. So you'll probably see some slides that look familiar. Okay. In fact, I talked Ernie this afternoon before I came into town. Cool. He's okay. And then yes, the swan here. This is pretty interesting. It's gonna it's the first swan that was super like wow. Yeah, and
excuse me, we're not seeing the slides over here.
Okay, we're not sharing screen yet.
Okay.
here.
There already slides.
Yeah. We haven't started the slideshow yet.
We can start it right now.
Okay.
If you want. At least
He just kept looking at it as if he was showing slides, and so I thought maybe he was showing slides.
There's a beautiful taxidermied swan that he's looking at.
Here it comes.
Whoops. Okay, now I'm gonna have to go back. There we go. Swan has joined the audience. Yeah, check it out. First swan to be hatched at Summer Lake.
yes, from the area. Thank you. Okay, just a quick refresher. Just swan identification versus trumpeter. Pretty easy. This is really great to have a model here. Trumpeter, with the V on here up there. I with them is just seeing that the eye is really covered up with the black. You can kind of see it on the one there, the full one in the back. The trumpeter, the other one's kind of hard to see. It's screening itself, and then the tundra in the front. Back. One other thing, and this sounds going to show it a little bit. It's probably not really back's posture, but my impression with trumpeters is you noticed how erect the one on the left is. It's almost like there's this big 20-25 pound body, and they put and it's straight up. It's they put a top of that's straight up, and so you kind of get these kind of 90-degree angles. I see that in a flock of swans. Really stands out. That and just the size. You can see that in this picture here, the thighs that way, and then the absolute killer way is when they call. And I'm not very good at imitations, but listen to Merlin or some of the other ones, and you cannot mistake that. Once you hear trumpeters, they really stick in your ears. Okay, so like I said, it's been about 30 some years. Been working. It's almost 30 years. Well, I'm still doing it now. Anyways, here's the historic distribution of Trumpeter Swans. When we started working on the project, there was a little bit of feedback from some people as well. You know, why are you working to restore trumpeters in Oregon when, you know, they may not have been here historically as breeders? And we kind of like, well, we don't have definitive proof. There's a good suggestion they probably were here. I think for many with very high fields that came down and stuff, you would kind of exclude some of this historic range that we're seeing on this map from being potential breeding sites and basically push that further south. That really came home to me. A few years ago, I got contacted by Dr. Dennis Jenkins, who was doing, he's the archaeologist working at these caves. I'm sure some of you about that. In the habitation that was 14,000 years ago. Dennis called me up and asked, Marty, you know, what kind of numbers of helpers do you see us? And I said, well, you know, a few hands, spring and fall migration. And you know, it's not all, but Dennis was asking me because they showed up in visions in those caves from that house. And I said, yes, you know, maybe they could have gone on migration, you know, at that time, these lakes you want canyons right up the face of the caves, and so they could have done something like that. He goes, yeah, but what if there had been the big ice shield that came down there and shifted their breeding range because the black-bellied plovers were Nordic breeder. And plus, so the same thing may have happened to trumpeters. They may have extended their range much further down there. Neither here nor there, you know, we finally got the blessings to continue working with Trumpeter Swans. Now here's kind of the current distribution that we see with Trumpeter Swans are right in the way. Okay. Yeah, and mainly what we're dealing with here at Summer Lake or in Oregon is Rocky Mountain population. You can see the three populations: Pacific Coast, Rocky Mountain, and then the interior population.
Is that Ruby Lake?
That would be, yeah, I don't have a pointer here, but it's a spot there, right above. Step in. Yeah, that would be Ruby Lake in there. There's another picture, I think. Diagram that way. Anyways, been involved with Trumpeter Swan management for 35 years, mainly in partnership with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Trumpeter Swan Society. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, of course, has been pretty big with that. The Fish and Wildlife Service, they've got jurisdiction over migratory birds. Of course, they're going to be involved with that right from the get-go, and any of the management programs, they're going to be right there and basically approve what we propose. So, yeah, it was pretty tough to find trumpeters. That's one of your refuge. You know, back in the 1980s, prior to the 1990s, except at Mother because of a restoration flock there, Fish and Wildlife Service established back in 1939. I think around in the early 1920s, the trumpeter swans were almost listed as an endangered species because they could only find 32 or so around the Yellowstone area. Probably survived their first winter time because of geothermal activity. They didn't know about the other part of the Rocky Mountain population off of Canada. There's some of there, and then Alaska also had a pretty good patch of trumpeter swans up in the interior. Alaska so fast, they just didn't know. So.
No, just stay close to the microphone.
You put it in like that. So, so the service was really obvious outwards from one area, Southern National Refugees, like the Yanks that by turf refuge in Washington outside. And I believe maybe some sites in Idaho too. Yeah, Buffalo Grace Lake could have been involved in that as well. But so it was 1939 that Malheur got the Swans. And then it took a while. I think they had their first breeding there in 1958. Then it blossomed to 19 breeding pairs and 77 individual birds in the population there by 1980. 1980, things took a turn for the worse. What 1980 was some very big flooding events that happened across southeast Oregon, like maybe around here.
Working.
There we go. This is one of the ranches. Yeah, and that was bad enough. It flooded and destroyed a lot of the emergent vegetation, the tules, the cattails, things like that. Even more damaging was it allowed common or to get in the entire system. This is a scene from Malheur Refuge after a roadhound tree with carp. I mean, he got beside his car. And they eat basically the same things, the swamps, the aquatic plants that are in there, their activity, their foraging activity, it disrupts a lot of the sediments, and so it's just this vicious cycle where you just don't have any vegetation. Needless to say, the effects to the trumpeter swans at Malheur National Wildlife Refuge was dramatic. And even prior to that event, there was a discussion there early on by the Fish and Wildlife Service that the swans were largely sedentary. They were brought there when they established them. They had them in a pen for a few years, and they fed them there, and they basically, just kind of a lot of drive to migrate elsewhere, and so they were pretty sedentary. And Malheur is not a friendly environment in the wintertime. And so that's another adverse effect for the trumpeters at Malheur. And that got people thinking we've got to try and instill a migration tradition. And then that got the Malheur Refuge folks very active, particularly talking with us and OGF&W to establish between Summer Lake and Malheur Fish and Wildlife Refuge. So this is when we started out the Oregon Trumpeter Swan Plan in 1991, and went through the Pacific Flyway Council. That's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service overseeing it with all the 11 western states in the Pacific Flyway together to discuss this. Goals were pretty ambitious. Just kind of pull these out of our hats type deal, just kind of figure what do we want. We don't know what we can support. We don't know, how this really works. So we came up with having the 5 pairs and 25 adults at Malheur, 10 pairs and 50 adults in Summer Lake and the surrounding area in Innuit. That's what areas around us. So those just came up that way. And you can see here, these are some of the program in the Rocky Mountain population. Some of the other areas, the greater Yellowstone area is a big driver in it. And one area that I will mention a little bit later, they call it the tri-state area, and that's this country right in here. That's kind of part of the initial Rocky Mountain population, trumpeter swans. And we'll find it also turned out to be a weak link for swans in the flyway, at least the US flocks, trumpeter swans. So, you know, Summer Lake selected, and you can kind of see, you know, where we are there. The size is pretty substantial. We've got pretty stable water supply. Out here is largely, you know, reliant on runoff and snowpack and really adversely affected by drought. Summer Lake's a little bit better that way. You know, we've got spring water, but we're still kind of shackled to that. You know, we have to be a little astute and aware of where we're moving our water. But we've also got a better climate there at Summer Lake than Mount here has. And even when it gets, you know, really cold at Summer Lake, we still have some habitat out there. And then we've got the same time, there are tundra swans that are there, you know, in the winter. So we figured, you know, we're just a shoe-in for trumpeter swans. And then, as it mentions there, there's active hunting on Summer Lake Wildlife Area, but 40% is designated sanctuaries, and so no hunting out there. And then within that 100-mile radius, we've got other wetland areas and stuff. So here's an example. This is Schoolhouse Lake on Summer Lake Wildlife Area. That day it was 20 degrees below zero. And this is what we were looking at. We took this picture that way. Meanwhile, at Malheur, it was 32 below zero. Then at Harriman State Park, Idaho, kind of that tri-state region, it was 52 below zero. So Summer Lake, you know, we've got the table set that way for them. In this picture right here, there were 5 trumpeter swans on that, and they're mixed in there. You might be able to see them in there. They take a lot of study to find those, but take my word for it. So we got going with the program, and mainly we were working with Malheur Refuge, but then during the same time period in the late 80s, there was a huge event, a weather event in that tri-state region where it got into some of that 40, 50 below zero range. And at that time, that's where the trumpeter swans, the Rocky Mountain population, wintered. The tri-state region was right there in the Henry's Fork of the Snake River. Red Rock Lakes National Wildlife Refuge was a big part of that. There's some springs in there. They actually winter fed trumpeter swans there, but the conditions were so harsh, they lost several hundred trumpeter swans to exposure and starvation. And before that what's said and done, the surviving trumpeters also destroyed the marine habitat that was used to be a blue ribbon trout fishery there in the Henry's Fork. And so they were thinking, okay, we've got to really do something now for trumpeter swans, because, you know, they can't keep coming here and dying stuff. It's basically swan migration, wintering areas, young were taught by their parents where to go, and they don't go any further. They're just going to keep going back to the same spots. So anyways, that's kind of similar to Malheur with Mario. So we started moving swans that way. Red Rock Lakes, they eliminated their winter feeding program, and then actively got into a range expansion project I'll talk about a little bit later. But in the first few years working closer to home there, we saw some pretty interesting results from both out here and some of the Red Rock Lakes. We started picking up some nesting in different areas, and those are kind of the The yellow stars on there, those were active nests that actually hatched some cygnets. And then some of the other ones that we moved, some of these are subadults. Trumpeter Swan biology is, it usually takes them 5 years to reach breeding age. And so this is really, really a long-term project in that we can move these swans there. But we've got to keep younger here for 5 years before they can actually start contributing to the population. So it's a numbers game playing with here. And some of those that we move, they still have some movements that they're wanting to move around their tug, instinctively, to maybe head south or maybe to head north. And so that's where you get some of these other locations. The green trees in here are where some of the swans that we moved to Summer Lake went to. So that they've dispersed a little bit. Here's even a further one that shows the degree of that movement. This is down here, Independence, that's down by Mono Lake. Yeah, so they're moving there. Down British Columbia. The swans that we moved from out here to Summer Lake, thinking, okay, these are homebodies, they don't know where to go, but they certainly proved us wrong that way. It's pretty easy to see this right here, going from Summer Lake to the Sacramento Valley down here, this Lynn County, Butte County, the southern, this is around Sacramento. So that's pretty logical. That's where the tundra swans were headed to. So they need to just follow their kinfolk down that way. Okay, the range redistribution I briefly mentioned. That started going in '86. After that mortality event in 1990, it was really accelerated because they saw that huge die-off. And at the same time, we're working on our project, and we were at the winter site, so they figured, okay, with this whole process for Trumpeter Swans, broadening out the population for the flyaway. And maybe we'll get a few of them to stick at Summer Lake, and that'll help us out too. So we came into that. Well, you can see Red Rock Lakes, who's up there in the tri-state region, they're still moving some around. And then you can see the ones moved to Summer Lake, 92 to 94. And then at the same time, you can see the numbers that came to Summer Lake. We're over 585 swans have been moved there. But these are moved in the winter time. And this time of year, November, December, that's when they're there. Be up there. And capturing flighted birds during that time period was Herculean tasks and stuff. There's a couple of individuals working with the ornithologists to Rock Druga was the principal player on that, and Kent Clay was another one. They were catching the swans, and we were making the walk drive the Summer Lake to Harriman State Park. It's about a 14-hour drive. You can get out of there and go back home. You can meet in the middle by 7 hours. Okay. That kind of sped things up a bit. In 1999, I can't remember the actual reasons, but there was a petition, I think, that came out, or a lawsuit to list Trumpeter Swans as part of threat or endangered status. And so that put the skids on things from the state's perspective. That's because if somebody wants to be going to private land, don't want to set up private landowners from any legal liabilities or anything like that. So they basically stopped, any active actions. I mean, we're still monitoring and doing things like that. Yes.
How could a swan possibly live?
Just with habitat restrictions. You think about spotted owls and restrictions for logging and stuff like that. Yeah, something like that. But and just the fallout private sector stuff and so being a state agency, you're pretty beholden to the legislature and things like that. So you don't want to put yourself in that position. like I said, the active restoration stopped, but however, we still continued with the other things. And what really hurt us on that is, I showed you that picture that showed the successful testing that we had there. And, it's really unfortunate, but trumpeters are very adept at finding ways to die. And human inflicted loss. If there was a shooting issue, and that takes place, but they're big, they collide with power lines, they collide with fences. In that 5-year time period, young of the year, their predation is huge on them. Even normal wild burns, they figure about 50%. Cigarettes, first year burns are lost, they die. A year later, okay, it survived its first year, got past it, he was lucky, the upper part, 50%. The second year, he's probably got a 70% chance of living, and then it slowly ratchets up, and then even an adult, a 5 or 6 year old, probably 90% chance of surviving to the next year. So, anyways, that just really hurt us. I mean, we'd lose one of a pair that produced, a brood. They just got going. They may have had 1 or 2 cygnets that just got going, and then all of a sudden we'd lose the cob or the hen. And then it would take a while for them to repair up, not repair, lost. But and if you didn't have that steady source of new replacements in there, just the attrition that way. So we lost a lot of ground in that time period. But we restarted in 2009, and between 2009 and now, we've moved a total of 154 swans here. It's a case of just getting a source. And some of the sources have been the Wyoming Wetland Society has got a facility in Jackson, Wyoming, that has got on some of the large ranches there, stuff, Swans and Trumpeter Swans. So they supply cygnets for these restoration projects, but we also get them from zoos and other places here locally. We had Aspen Lake at Sisters, and then the Forward Resort. All those places have had swans. Great to have a source. Sometimes they are not best source because they're not wary of people. They may not be wary of dogs that would resemble a coyote or anything like that. So there's a lot of issues with finding the right source to do that. The latest iteration of that is we are working with the Trumpeter Swan Society, has done most of the work, but with the Idaho Zoo in Pocatello, they've got a facility there that can raise a large number of Trumpeter Swan young in a setting where they don't have any human influence and stuff. That's what we. Some of these that we get, they're numbered posts, basically. I mean, there's times they'll be out there, we put them out and they came from a zoo or something like that. There'll be a duck hunter right there sitting in the pond hunting ducks, and these swans will swim up to him. And swans will not hunting or anything. Another time, it was 1 year on one of our shorebirds that we had 5 swans came from a captive breeder. We turned them loose, grass lake on Summer Lake. I happened to be doing the shorebird survey where I walk around the lake down in shorebird. Released the swans in the morning, and by the time it took me to walk around the lake to get back, I saw the swans. They went out. They're out in the middle of the lake. I saw them come back to a bank. Okay, I'm going to come around, and I'll be able to see them back there. By the time I got there, I finally had already filled. 1 hour. Yeah. And and they didn't know. They went to the bank. The other 4, they had great experience. Did didn't survive that one. So it's tough. That's why there's a lot of numbers here that way. We've experimented. Some of them are pre-flight signets, so young of the year. And we'll get them and bring them here. The idea there is they would imprint on an area where they first attained full flight. And so that was one way, but with that normal wild 50% mortality, they gotta have to wade through a lot of them. So then we switched over and went to earrings. Whereas we'll take those same signets and then we will clip one wing so they can't fly away. Right? They won't have flight capability. They'll raise them that way. Then you've got the issue of getting habituated to people and stuff like that, so they have to be raised correctly and stuff. Same idea. Okay, they haven't been able to take their first flight, and so they would release them right before they molt, and then when they go back to flight, they start to fly, and they're flying somewhere. Those are the two ideas.
Have you read since the baby's born?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's been a lot of
Yeah. She was 2,
right.
yeah, and she had adopted some of the
Right.
pre-flight signals.
Yeah, that's been fantastic. You know, that's what it is. You get these ones that are born there, they're acclimated to it, they're not part of the breeding. Then you release some of these other ones, they come and catch themselves. It's almost like they're a guide or a scout, you know, hey, follow me, I'll show you the way around and stuff.
The other bird that died with this one when they flew by was a baby of Grace's.
Great. Yep.
Grace was another swan we have. Yes, so.
Okay, so we'll shift gears, we'll go back to the range redistribution. The poor there in the tri-state area, the die off and stuff. And that movement of, over 500 swans to Silver Lake. Majority of them returned, which we expected, they went back to Canada. Sometimes, kind of just being shoved or pulled over from the tri-state region to Summer Lake. Some of them went south, and so they showed up in California, Nevada, Utah. And then when they left, some of them went north, went far, they kind of overshot, went into Western Washington and British Columbia. And then over subsequent years, there were just a few that would come back. See, all these birds are marked individual columns. They become an individual known to us. They've got a unique tone, so we know who they are. And over time, this is in the early 2000s. We were starting to see more and more trumpeters, some without collars. And sometimes, they can lose a collar. They crack, they break and stuff like that. And so we're kind of, we're going, okay, we're seeing this, and it's kind of what we hope for, but is it, somewhere, outside of Summer Lake, or is it production out there that they're, coming to us, like off, or they're, some other individuals that are just staying there. Or the bottom one is, have we done something to create a wintering population? Well, we started seeing some evidence of this. This is the Summer Lake Christmas bird count. Someone in this room talked me into being a compiler back in 1987. I've been here since. You can see where we started out. Not many trumpeters showed up on the Christmas bird count, but you get in there around 91, and then you see that big flip in there. That's when we move. Okay, and then we get past that time period, and we kind of drop back down to where there's not much going on, and then all of a sudden we start seeing this going on. We're up until that last number that we didn't update this from last year, but 313. So you can go from 0 in 1987 to 313 identified. There's a lot of swans you see there that are identified, so you don't have where you have.
What's that big shot up in 19?
Where's that?
From players around 100 to 300.
From here,
No, in 2019.
this.
Yeah,
It may have been just, who was there? Sometimes on the Christmas bird count, it's so cold and frozen, there you'll see 600 swans.
yeah.
I'm laying down in there. They talk, you can't, we've got any white swans. These things are just identified individuals. That's why you've got that little bit of variation. So in 2000, we decided, okay, we're just gonna start our own swan survey. This is in February, started it, and we're just looking at all swans. And you can kind of see the trajectory right there of what's going on. We started out, it's almost 100. And again, you got that function of visibility and just determination and stuff, but you can see the trend is up that way. At the same time, now here, National Wildlife Refuge, we're seeing the same thing. This is in late January, but most of February. And so we're seeing some pretty substantial numbers it's just like, wow, this is kind of interesting. They weren't a release site, but there's something else going on. Well, and then this was kind of something that we've been keeping track of, and I think I've got an answer to what is going on here. This is one individual that we moved from Harriman State Park in 1994, a cygnet female. And she stayed alive, and you can see over the years, she's showing up. She's still in that tri-state area. She's moving around back there, but she comes back to Summer Lake. So she's learned that. Goes back up to the tri-state, back to Summer Lake, and all of a sudden, boom. 5 years later, she comes back and she's brought 4 kids with her. So this is great. And then you look here, and these next years, the number of young she brought to Summer Lake, making some other detours on her way south. She stops the northeast corner of the state by Ladmarsh Wildlife Area. Still comes to Summer Lake. And then I think 2011 is the last time we saw her. But during that time period, 36 cygnets. Okay, even if she lost half, so that's 18. And so you've got those, and then now they are coming of breeding age as well. So let's send us on this mission. Okay, we got all these swans, but where are they coming from? We have no idea. And so we've got these the GSM technology, GSM GPS. These are collars that GPS collars, like locations, you can set them at the frequency of that, once every 4 hours, 12 hours. And then they transmit that data to cellular phone towers, and it comes back to a computer console, and you can sit at your desk and see what happens. Well, you gotta deploy those collars. And so in the dead of winter at Summer Lake, we're out in February on the airboat capturing 3-flighted swans. Do that with a bright spotlight. You really hope for, but you secretly wish it wasn't that way. You hope for snow. You really do. But anyways, we catch these swans to put these colors. You can see them right there. They've got solar panels on them. So they theoretically have a pretty long lifespan. But we're finding out that, there's some issues with the technology on that, but you do get quite a bit of life out of them.
Now, do you bring them back? Or do you do it in the boat?
Well, what I like to do is bring them back.
Yeah.
That's I'm sort of bad. It's star. For them this week. We're looking for whites, not looking for the young ones. We're hopefully trying to find adults that we can work with. So we bring them back to the shop, put them in dog kennels with shade bed, stuff like that, and hold them overnight, and then in the morning release. You just give them all an iPhone and could use the phone. Okay, so then we started this in 2019. And this is the first individual we marked. And she went up to up here. This is by Upper British Columbia. And she was up there, came back to us the following year. You can see her path, kind of moving northeast from Summer Lake over northeastern Oregon, clipping through Washington, Idaho. So that kind of said, okay, you know, he's a Canadian trumpeter and stuff, but comes back through that tri-state region in the fall migration. She'll move down through here. And then here's some other ones, other marked ones in 2022. We got a curveball thrown at us when they switched from 3G technology to 5G. The colors then became obsolete. So we lost a lot of information. We basically had dead colors. And so, you know, we continued and this past year we got really aggressive and we went very nice with a grant to get a bunch of callers to the Trumpeter Swan Society, and I'm losing that name. But anyways, so we had callers from Farmlight, additional ones, and callers from Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. The Dakota Valley doesn't solve those numbers, increases in Malheur too.
Well, the ones eventually follow.
For plastic,
Do they have to live with them for 20 years?
I think they have to live. You know, still do. You got some that are, yeah, they're fairly lightweight, you know, they're engineered pretty good that way.
They go up and down the neck, right?
Yeah,
Not stuck in one spot.
Yeah, they're not fixed.
Yeah.
Like that, they slide up the town. So this is, oh, go ahead.
They migrated like this, are they migrating the swans or are they individual? Just move by themselves.
Usually, you know, where I live in Summer Lake now, at the northern basin, and quite often, trumpeters move over my head. And they're pretty, you know, kind of locked into their own groups. So you don't really see like the yeah, you know, Mexico or anything like that. They're variable sizes of flocks. And then the data, I mean, we have got thousands of GPS points on where they stop and the time they spend at these locations, depending on the intensity of the collection of the data. In fact, Brandon Rice is our migratory bird coordinator, and a lot of these are coming to him. And he can see in the summertime, they're up in Alberta, and you can see all the GPS points on one point, one thing, and that's where they're nesting. It's some preliminary information from swans that were marked last February. And what we're looking at here is this is Alberta. This is British Columbia. We've got the Northwest Territories up here. This year we had like several swans that get so far north, they get away from cellular connection that they go silent. We don't know anything about that until they start this southward migration and coming back to Summer Lake, and then they download all the data they collected, and we figure out where they. Some of them we don't know. You know, did they fall off the face of the earth? You know what happened? But some of them download and they tell us they've been up in the Northwest Territories. This is Great Slave Lake up here. Yeah. So if you see that, so this.
They're going to missing and holding grits.
What's that?
They're holding grits.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they're not too far from Wood Buffalo National Park. One of them came in that area, just a little bit further south of that. And they're picking up there. Remember that first map that showed the range of Pacific population up there? Well, it's kind of a fuzzy line between Pacific population and Rocky Mountain population. So, like, I think both are pushing together. So they may be just one big happy family eventually and stuff. Some other ties that way, just kind of an aside. One of the signets from some river might have been a sibling to the one that died
Oh, really?
3 out of 4.
Okay.
Yeah, it decided to leave Summer Lake and went up to British Columbia. And it's been up there since then. And it's 7 years old now. And I'm thinking it's probably has a brood up there, but it's living in the Creston Valley country of British Columbia. So we've got Oregon connections to that point. We've got another, this is another kind of interesting story. One that came from northwest Frenchview up by Seattle. They came down to Summer Lake. And we released her there. She hung out for a few years, and then these last 3, it seems like, she has decided not to go south or north. She goes west. She goes up in the Ladder Valley. She's William Finley Refuge. And then she and her sister get one job here. Go up to Vancouver Island. Then they come back. So this one is sort of the same thing. It's crossing the Cascades in there. Twice.
The Selmers.
She hasn't been able to find but she gets back and she's got other swans on. She's kind of an odd one. We've got another one. Sunrise 6 at 6. He's like a widower or something like that. She's getting to be 6 or 7. She's never picked up a mate, but she comes up some occasion. And I don't know if you had reports there on, I think someplace along with the shoots. Occasionally she's there and she comes back Summer Lake and kind of mopes around by herself or gets, with another swan. Just doesn't seem to do much.
Did they get heart broke? Yeah.
I don't know. What's that?
I mean, I've been looking at a goose every day for like 26 years. They have the same feelings as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some others. You got another interesting pairing. There's one from Pronghorn, and he has lost two mates, and has got another one right now, and it's pretty important. Turns out to be his daughter. Yeah, that's kind of weird, but
Was he actually made?
well, they weren't best this year or anything like that.
Nature finds a way.
Yeah. So I like to end them on sunsets in any of my presentations. Unfortunately, it's not a sunset, it's a sunrise, but it's just real pretty. So any other questions and stuff, that's pretty it in a nutshell. Kind of hard to synthesize 30-some years to something to say, but I hope it's
Yeah, so earlier on, like during the 2000s, the population seemed maybe not sustainable. Do you think the population is in a place now where if you stop introducing them, it would still be self-sustainable?
No, I think we're at low end right now. I think the drought has taken a big impact. We haven't had a good number around. When I mentioned the Christmas bird, the February surveys, I also still flying a survey in June. And then September, June survey is to see a breeding season distribution, and the September survey is to see annual production. Been doing this, for quite a few years now. This year, that's Lake County. county, Plymouth County. And this year's survey, I think I came up with, I want to say it's around 34, 35 from our Swans. One room, there was something in March. We did not have that summer like this year. Years past, we've had a couple of nests, hatch and stuff. So it's just a matter of time. So we've got to kind of keep up with keep swan potential breeders in general stuff to sustain me.
So is the long-term goal to establish a sustainable population?
Yes,
Otherwise, why keep?
yes, yeah, I mean, that's it. And we've got, from the late 1990s when we had this dispersed, we had nesting at Klamath National Refuge. We had nesting at the Spring River, the Spring Valley. We had nesting up at the Crooked River by Galina. Many little violent sites that could be filled. They're still there at Galina. They were unsuccessful this year. There was a pair at Spring River was this year from the air. And so, that's the goal, is to get enough out there. Then we got these different sites that are all going to continue to contribute, and hoping to get that connection between somebody here over the years. Out here, it's done a lot of habitat restoration, or exclusion, so they can have got some restored wetlands there. Right now, Mountain's got 3 swans here. Phoenix. And then this other single, in one area, she's been some of them, she's been in the Goose Lake Valley, that Lakeview. Maybe she was in the Crooked River. We don't know what her is. She goes by, a whole bunch of potential suitors all around her. She stops for a while.
Like in Washington, the swans keep dying from food. In Washington, isn't there a particular lake that has too much lead in it?
Yeah, that's up, say in Montgomery County or, Bellingham even.
It's killed a lot of swans that they thought about draining. Or
No, there's some other actions. There's a lot of work done. Just some details, but yeah, they're still working with them. Pretty soon.
so Sun River, breeding parent, were they developed like story?
Yes. And the signets are at the zoo, and they're in the new rearing facility. Those are about
And similarly, what's the proportion of tundras to truckers? Are there a lot more tundras there? Or?
yes, probably,
In the winter.
yeah, it's only winter. Yeah, probably 2 to 1. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. This is, I haven't really looked that hard at it, but it almost seems like there may be less tundras now.
It's kind of a feeling.
Right.
Cooperative or competitive?
See them together, but the trumpeter feeding on Poland, they get pretty protective of a foraging stuff. It's done to our children. Yeah.
The carrying capacity of those places, cheer loss is limited.
Yeah, and then you've got that time period in the winter. There's going to be a certain time period that's really restricted, but they're a big body bird, good forage. They can withstand it. Summer lake never stays really hard and frozen over for it. Be that way for 5 days. They can kind of run. Hey, that may be something else that's going on with the Canadians coming down and that increasing number. I don't know if you saw that slide, it kind of was going up, it kind of flattened a little bit. Well, what else is happening is they're down in California. I've been down to Alturas a few times, and they're seeing like the refuge National Wildlife Refuge. Jesse was saying, I think I've got a lot of trumpeters here. I'm not sure. look and sure, she had like 75. And so they're even pushed beyond some way. I was out just a few days ago, kind of right there by, Hayward Lake, kind of the ridge between Hayward Lake and the Chihuahua River. And I could hear trumpeters on the Riverside Reservoir. There were 35 trumpeters. And that's like 40 straight miles from Summer Lake, south of Summer Lake. So they're moving somewhere else too. So we've got something else going. We've got fingers crossed that maybe some of these GSM transmitters, especially the ones out here, we're thinking those ones that are coming back, maybe they will show us,
So cool.
successful winter potential. So we had one mark at Summer Lake. She went to the Lower Spring River outside of Chilla, spent all winter here last year. Yeah, no, she was with, there was a person doing winter raptor surveys there. And he was talking to me about trumpeters. He goes, I think I'm seeing a bunch more. And he said, yeah, there's trumpeters, and we got, she spent all winter spring. It's a big spring fed complex down. Yes, spring.
Yeah. These guys can feed a lot deeper because they're necks.
Yes.
So they go farther into the lake areas where the trumpeters are.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, tundras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Summer Lake's ideal that way because most of our ponds are less than 3 feet deep. It's really pretty shallow. And then we see an interesting phenomenon in early February, they start moving and get more terrain and get up into that, roots of tubers, not in the pond, they stop jumpers and tunders as well.
So hunting is illegal in Florida.
What's that?
Hunting is illegal for these.
All swans.